It is the 2nd of December, and this day in Baptist history, our reading is Like Father, Like Sons. Our two verses of Scripture come from Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 6 and 7. And these words, which I command thee this day, shall be in thine heart. And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. The Buckner family of the state of Tennessee at one time boasted 15 Baptist preachers in their ranks, and one of that number is the subject of our interest today. Daniel Buckner was born on September 30th, 1801 in South Carolina. His father, Henry Buckner, was a personal friend and great admirer of Daniel Boone, and thus he named his son after the rugged and distinguished pioneer. While Daniel was but a child, the family moved to Cocke County, Tennessee. We know little of Daniel's preteen years, but the youngster was converted in his 15th year. He had to walk 12 miles to accomplish his obedience, but he was baptized by Elder Caleb Witt, pastor of the Lick Creek Baptist Church in Greene County. At the age of 18, Daniel married Miss Mary Hampton, a granddaughter of Reverend William Dodson of North Carolina, and a relative of General Wade Hampton of the Revolutionary War and Lieutenant General Wade Hampton of the Civil War. God blessed that union with 5 children, 3 sons and 2 daughters. The oldest son, Dr. H.F. Buckner, spent 35 years as a missionary to the Creek Indians and translated the Gospel of John into the Creek language. It was said of H.F. Buckner that, and I quote, he made a stronger impression on the Creek nation than any other man, end of quote. Their second son, B.B. Buckner, died following the Mexican War and was buried in Mexico City. Miriam Isbell was their third child, and in adulthood she gave birth to another well-known Baptist preacher, Dr. A.J. Holt. Their fourth child was Dr. R.C. Buckner, who established the Buckner Orphans Home in Texas. The first children were admitted to the home on December 2, 1880, and the operation became the largest orphanage in the Southwest. The Buckners' last child, named for the famed missionary Ann Hazeltine Judson, was widowed early in life and made her residence with her brother in Dallas, Texas. Daniel Buckner was licensed to preach when he was 22, and in 1827 he was ordained by the Chestu Baptist Church in Monroe County, Tennessee. His early ministry was characterized with a steady stream of converts who followed the Lord in baptism. He successfully planted churches, and he served as pastor in several churches. During the 1830s, because of the strong opposition to missions, Daniel Buckner was appointed a missionary by the state convention, and he traveled extensively indoctrinating his hearers concerning the challenge of the Great Commission. His remuneration was 50 cents a day, but that was little compensation for the sneers and wicked epithets that were hurled at him by bigoted professed believers who opposed the missionary enterprise. On one occasion, upon returning to his home church, he discovered that they had adopted the anti-missionary stance, and a charge was brought against him for having been connected with the state convention. He was not permitted to speak at his so-called trial, and he was excluded from the membership. Mrs. Buckner asked to be excluded with her husband, but the congregation refused, claiming that they had nothing against her. Elder Buckner demanded a copy of the charges, and he used those charges as a recommendation to a missionary-minded Baptist church where he, his wife, and their oldest son united. For 15 years, from 1839 to 1854, he served as pastor in the beautiful area of Somerset, Kentucky. Terminating that ministry, he then served 4 smaller churches during the next 7 years. In 1861, the Buckners removed to Texas to join their son and daughter, but Mrs. Buckner died en route. The man of God persisted, however, in his service to the Lord. After pastoring churches in Boston, Texas, and DeKalb, Texas, he served the Lord in Baptist churches and other Texan communities. He then remarried in 1865. He was actively engaged in ministering until he was 70, when physical problems caused him to go into semi-retirement. In his long and useful ministry, it is estimated that Reverend Buckner baptized over 5,000 converts, and at least 25 of these became ministers of the gospel. In his 84th year, he laid aside his earthly armor to enter heaven. His body was reverently laid to rest, and upon his tombstone was inscribed the following verse, which he had personally chosen, Psalm 116. Return unto thy rest, O my soul, for the Lord hath dealt bountifully with thee. To God be the glory.